So the Hyaku Shiki chart Aznables, very distinctive Gundam with its anti-beam coating. Very, very bling. Very, very... Oh, let's click it together so we can... There we go. Good posability, some lovely accessories. Box art, as always, for a Gundam kit is delightful. I just wish that they translated the boxes, because there's a whole world of stuff in here that I'm not benefiting from, which is a bit sad. So open up, having a look inside, we've got a lot of this, so the golden plastic, the plastic itself is infused with mica powder or something to give it a gold appearance. So we've got 2 sprues in here, stickers, those that like dry decals, that'll be interesting. Another gold sprue here, and our dark colour sprue, our black sprue there. So 1, 2, 3, 4 sprues. 5, 6 and 7, we have a clear piece sprue here that looks like our visor, our eyepiece, as well as the handful of dark blue parts and some of those red parts that I mentioned earlier on the mobile suit. So 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 sprues along with a polycap sprue. So we've got our what looks like gun parts here and a few internal joints and parts, our beam sabers, polycaps, and as always in the bottom of the box are nice glossy instructions. Just change the angle of that so you can actually appreciate it. A very swish looking kit, very reminiscent of the Wing series Gundams as well, with lovely long legs and very compact torso. Has those lovely big shoulders. So got our colour side and some posing guides along with all the rest of our step-by-steps. So if you look there, you've got a few different examples for the visor, demonstrating the flexibility of the kit, posability, different hands, mounting your different weapon accessories. I can't remember what this guy's called off the top of my head, but that's another one that I look forward to making an MG in the future. But yeah. Aside from the actually quite presentable, though not entirely uniform, golden plastic, pretty standard boxing for an HG kit. You've got these weird like tide marks where the different amounts of the golden particles in the plastic have come in, but we're going to be giving all a lick of paint, so that's not going to be a problem. One HG kit. Now to give the Guncannon the same treatment. So I don't think I'm alone when it comes to people who thought the Guncannon was a much cooler looking suit than Grandpa Gundam, the 78-3. I might be getting my numbers wrong, and now a hit squad's coming out to get me for getting it wrong. But yeah, Guncannon is it's red, so it goes faster. Box itself, great UC box art. Some great examples of posability along with our prone position for the Guncannon itself, demonstrating the accessories and posability. A repeat of the box art. Loads of Japanese that I'll never be able to read. Box art again. And then opening it up. One of the things that I noticed about this, and we'll get on to when we get to the red parts, is how the gating's been done and how it's been moulded. But we have our single piece of green plastic for our visor, and with our polycap sprue, and our red parts for the weapon and for the chest, so they'll get a lick of something. I'll pick an appropriate gold or yellow once I've decided on exactly what kind of red I'm doing this with. We have 2 sprues of grey, or nearly identical sprues of grey parts. No, in fact these are identical sprues back to back. Both sprue C's, which is really clever on their part, making identical parts, identical sprues that work in a mirrored fashion, along with our stickers just there. Feet sort of a bit reminiscent for me of the Hyaku. So 2 sprues on a polycap, 2 identical sprues there. Our 1 piece of white with our helmet, antenna and head. Another large grey sprue with a backpack, beam rifle, things like that. And all of our red parts on 1 sprue. Bearing in mind that's the kit complete. We had several gold sprues for the Hyaku Shiki, but with the Guncannon, that's it. The way that they've managed to achieve this, and I still think it's very, very clever, for a lot of the parts, and what's particularly, you normally see it on things like the upper arms, so the long cylindrical parts have all been moulded. I saw this with a Virtue that I modelled as well, that I built as well. The long parts are all vertically mounted in the sprue, so that you don't have to sandwich parts together to make 2 halves of an arm or 2 halves of a leg come together. There are parts on the leg, there are parts on the lower leg that come together on seams, but a lot of the arm, upper arm, and I'm not sure what those parts are, but they're going to be on here somewhere. Oh no, yeah, that's the upper leg there. So that'll be a sticker detail, I expect, or a bit of paint. Yeah, just keeps your part count right down, reduces the amount of plastic you need, and everything's gated as well with this on. So we've got some like side gates on this rather than it being undergated or edge gated. So that's probably going to need a bit of tidying up. So that's on the lower arms. So that'll need some tidying up before painting, but the rest of the kit, just having a poke and pull around. All the gates are in sensible positions along edges and on ends of parts rather than, yeah, that's a bit unfortunate. But yeah, the moulding is very, very clever. And once again, having a dive inside, interchangeable hands on ball joints, some posing guides, we've got assembly of the beam rifle with the yellow parts, all of our assembly, significantly fewer steps and bigger instruction blocks there, as well as some more posing guide. Yeah, colour guide as well, handy. Yeah. So we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 sprues again. I don't count the polycaps, but yeah, all of the colour parts, all of the red parts for the main body on 1 sprue, saving a bit of plastic and also just using some clever moulding techniques, really like it. And with the Hyaku Shiki we are absolutely resplendent with our golden parts, but we do have wings to build as well. And big selection of paints to choose from, just to add some depth and interest and modulate the panels and things like that. But yeah, never used lacquer paints before, which is another experiment, and looking forward to getting these to you guys built, seeing what the results are. So I am going to get cracking with getting these off the sprue, getting a part holder, and then we'll set up the spray booth and have a look at how the paints go on. Might have to give them a shake. Oh yeah, oh dear. So I'm going to go and shake these to death, and after I've got some assembly and disassembly done, and then we'll get spraying. Alright everyone, so after a bit of nipping and tucking and clipping and cutting, we've got the first kit, the Guncannon RX77-2. Off the sprues, everything's on clips, ready to go and get painted. I've got an empty clip here, which makes me very, very paranoid. I have to go hunt that, whatever that is, down. Looks like I might be missing a hip flap from somewhere. Excellent, that would be fun. Apart from that though, general scheme, there's a really nice dark red that I'm going to do most of the main parts in. The yellow parts will probably end up either a darker yellow or one of the gold colours I've got. Weapons, I'll go with a lighter silver and then grey and a gunmetal for a lot of the Gundam parts. A few bits that I want to touch in with a brush. I'll include things like the rockets on the base of the feet, and there's a small green clear part here for the visor. I want to put some silver in on the head behind that, just to bring that in. I might two-tone some of the red part, alternating parts for like the arms, so I might have like the upper arms and the upper legs in the more traditional Gundam red, this nice bright red. I might leave them as they are straight off the sprue, just to help break up the colour blocks a little bit. But yeah, we're good to go, good to get spraying. And yeah, once I've gotten some different colours down, see how some of these different paints behave coming out the airbrush. I'll go over what the airbrush needle and pressure is going to be as well once I've got something sorted. So next time you see the gloves, expect to see some paint on them as I experiment. But yeah, good to go, apart from this piece which is currently in Narnia, but we'll get that sorted. Oh, other way. Right, and we've had the airbrush booth out and it's been put away again. We've got almost everything from the kit on here, and everything's been given a good hosing down, a nice healthy dose of a slightly different colour. So what we'll start off looking at, so we've got the original red of the sprue, and we'll get a couple of decent sized parts, versus the red from the GPaint range. So that will be that, yeah. Oh, hang on, we're in Australian. There we go, right way up. Yeah, the GPaint red. This was the first one I used. Initially, some difficulties with the consistency of the paint on the glove. Ended up with a 1/2 mil needle. At about 12 psi, and it's pretty much exactly the same as your bog standard Gundam red colour. If we have a closer look, if it'll there. So went down very nicely, sort of a satin finish. Let's see if we can get, so you can see just here that the nub marks don't disappear, however the consistency would, but that was, well, this was a bit of a rush job just to test the paints, so I'm not expecting it's not a surfacer, it is just quote unquote just a paint, but the colour is absolutely delightful, and the nice sort of satin finish you get is also very nice. And as I said, pretty much an exact match for the original Sprue Red. Next one that we went with was Bloody Red, which is a slightly darker take on the original red colour. So if we do part for part, so again some nice nub marks there, just a little bit darker, nothing too excessive. I was expecting a much bigger delta, a bigger difference in the two colours, but it's just a bit darker. It's quite a slightly more purple than red in my opinion, not as dark as like Scab Red or Blood Red compared to the bright red, not as dramatic a colour difference as I was expecting, but still very nice. That's those. The pure gold compared to the original yellow. He says, I have no idea where the original yellow sprue is. Interesting. Moving on, so yeah, the pure gold. So the chest grill. The metallics went down really nicely. In the brush you could see the metallic particles quite prominently, not mixing very well, but after coming out through the airbrush and being deposited in all of the volatiles boiling off to leave just the paint, the finished look is really, really nice. And sight from our beam rifle and the pad from the cod piece. Lovely, lovely gold. So that's most of it. Went with ghost whites, slightly off-white, for the helmet. Oh, there's the original yellow. We'll do a quick comparison of that in a second. So the original plastic for the head is sort of a slightly greenish white. I don't know if that's to complement the green front piece. Instead of going with a silver paint, I'm going to put whatever decal there is, whatever sticker there is to go in there, and yeah, then just stick the clear green visor on. Let's try and get that central for you. But again, the coverage really, really nice, and the change in colour quite apparent, especially looking inside the parts of the helmet that haven't been painted. Green, green, yellow, yellow, and then we've got bright silver and dark iron for our metallics. So a comparison between the two with our dark iron and our bright silver next to it. So again, quite an obvious difference, and again the pigment particles were quite large and quite obviously separate from the carrier, but once through the airbrush the paints on both pieces went down absolutely beautifully. I'm actually quite looking forward to seeing what this all looks like put together. We went with the bright silver for the weapons parts, as well as the rockets for the backpack. All of the joints and parts, hands, the feet, were all done in the dark iron. Just enough colour variety to make it look good. Here's the colour difference between the original yellow and the gold. It's actually just a bit darker, but with the light I think that's going to look really, really nice. But we'll save final judgment for after assembly. But yeah, the biggest pain in the backside was that the stuff that I used for cleaning my airbrush when using acrylics didn't work with this. That was a bit less cleaning and a bit more scraping than I'd hoped to get done. But the airbrush is absolutely fine, has been taken apart and thoroughly cleaned, ready for the next kit, the Hyaku Shiki. But we'll get this put together and we'll have a look at both kits after the Hyaku Shiki's been done. But no, really happy with the paints and how they went down. What faults and flaws that are there are due to a little bit of lack of care in TLC on my part. The seam on the helmet, nub marks that haven't been sanded or filed away nice and neatly that still show through. Predominantly my fault. As far as issues with the kit, some of the round parts, like the parts for the arm, there are nub marks on the side because of how the sprues are gated. Slightly frustrating. Most of the parts, the nub marks, they're either side gated or under gated. Just a common pattern with some of these parts that you do get some weirdly positioned nubs because of the moulding techniques. Yeah, I'm going to get this put together and then get cracking with the Hyaku Shiki. And we'll look at those parts once they're arranged just like this, ready to get sprayed. And here we are, and believe it or not, this isn't every single piece of the kit taken off of the sprues. The weapons still haven't been done, but despite ordering more, I've run out of clips. I've even resorted to cocktail sticks with some of the smaller parts. So the plan is to use the pure gold for these parts, pale gold for these parts here, and then the copper for some of the smaller pieces. Sort of where the Hyaku Shiki was still sort of a prototype mobile suit, and they were still developing the anti-beam coating, so different parts were manufactured different places using different technologies and methods, resulting in slightly different metamaterials for combating beam weapons. Most of the grey parts are going to be done in black. I'm going to go for purple for the blue parts. The small pieces here, I'm going to be using the colour correcting stickers on rather than painting them. The red parts will be getting done with that nice, where is it? That really nice red, bloody red. Yeah, going to get the red parts and the blue parts done to free up some holders, get the rest of the weapon parts off, then do the gold parts, and then we'll get it assembled and take a good look at what the paints look like. I am debating at the moment whether or not after getting the paints on to do a gloss coat and do panel lining. We'll see how I feel, how I like the overall effect. And if I do that, that'll be the first time that I've gotten to use the lacquer varnishes as well. Alright then everyone, first off I've picked up a bit of a flu in the process of finishing these, so I apologise if I cough in your ears. So it begins. And yeah, I think I've found the missing setting I needed to tweak for the microphone. That aside, here we have them. the RX-77-2 Guncannon revived version, and the absolutely beautiful MSN 100 Hyaku Shiki. Both done with the StudioG airbrush lacquer paints. We'll do the kits first, so it'll be kit accessories, and then we'll come back and look at these and we'll talk about the paints. So, stay there. The Guncannon as a kit is delightful. It's beautiful. It's so simple. It goes together so well, and for a little bit of effort, it looks so good. Classic HG kit. Main difference between most of the other kits that I've done, in fact in both of these kits, the neck part is a cast plastic part rather than the usual little double ball joint piece of polycap material, but that gives you a nice look all the way up and all the way down, as well as that sort of back and forth that Mecha Gaikotsu loves so much. Even with the guns in place, we've still got quite a lot of deflection to the left and to the right, but the collar around that comes up for the shoulder mounted cannons does prevent full deflection left and right. The visor itself is a piece of coloured clear plastic that just goes straight in. I was going to put some silver in there, but I thought just with the white it looks quite good anyway. The parts you see as metallic now are just all cast in the same colour of grey. Let's have a look at the sprues quickly. So yeah, sorry, I lied. There are two distinct colours of grey that come with the kit. One slightly lighter than the other. I didn't go with the sprue colouring when picking my paints. I just went with what I felt was appropriate and suitable and what I wanted to do. The shoulder mounted cannons come just a little bit lower than parallel to the ground on the shoulders, and can be mounted all the way up. That Guncannon on the ground sort of supine on the ground, sniping with its cannons sort of pose is also quite easily achievable thanks to the neck piece. With the shoulders, so the shoulders articulate separate from the torso because you've got two separate parts here. So this silver part here is attached, sort of pinned in place between the lower part of the upper arm and connections to the polycap inside. Standard sort of standard high grade shoulder connections here, allowing full rotation. Maximum elevation on both sides for the arms, not quite 90 degrees. There's a little bit of back and forth, but I think that's more to do with the lack of detent in the polycap waist than anything else. Not really any side to side flexion. The arms and legs have both got the doubled up joint, so you've got just shy of 180 degree bend there due to limitations imposed by the size of the shoulder, and a standard polycap ball joint. Sorry, plastic on plastic ball joint, I believe. Yes, plastic on plastic ball joint for the wrists, allowing for full rotation of the wrists and some deflection up and down. At the hips, so the front skirt does come as a double ball joint that's held in place by the cod piece. Standard to most high grade kits. I have split that so each piece of the skirt can be moved independently. As for flexibility, side skirts have some flexion up but are blocked by the lower part of the torso piece. All that aside, though, we've still got quite a bit of spread there, and if we let's not try and break it. However, the front skirt only moves up, the back does not. That's not supposed to happen. There we go. So you've got a nice high range of movement all the way up at the front there. However, towards the back, not so much. However, the knee joints allow for about 150, 160 degrees of rotation, despite being quite sizable knees compared to some of the other kits that I've put together. At the ankles, we've got a lot more outward deflection than inward. There's no articulation in the feet themselves, and there's no, as he rips it off, there's no double joint in the foot, so the flexibility of the foot joint isn't particularly huge. As for accessories, so I've got one of each of the hands there. For a bit more of a close-up, you've got your classic sandwich style. Come on, refocus, you damnable thing. Sandwich style open grips for handling weapons. And sort of a relaxed there we go. And a relaxed open style palm. Just for sort for expressing, I suppose. After that, we have a classic Gundam style beam rifle. 3 parts, 5 parts. 2 main parts for the body, a barrel piece, a small piece that goes on in the end, and our coloured piece to go in for the scope lamp part. And that's it for accessories. The only other thing that comes in the kit is a set of numbered decals depending on which specific Guncannon from what particular series you want to put together. But no, I really like the kit. Went together really easily, went together really well, and just looks solid. Not immensely flexible even for an HG, but it's got enough posability and flexibility and parts to you can quite easily make this look good with a little bit of imagination up on your shelf. And that's it for the Guncannon kit. Onto the Hyaku Shiki. So I haven't counted, but I think I can relatively confidently say that Hyaku Shiki must have at least double the parts count. Sorry about that. Compared to the Guncannon. Went together absolutely delightfully. Despite having quite complex parts, the legs and the arms are identical apart from the parts that make them left or right. So the left shoulder, in fact the left and right shoulders go together identically, the feet go together identically, so the only parts that are different between the left and right leg is the upper part of the leg, disregard, not the upper part of the leg, it's the actual parts that go together to make the hip joint. And for the arms, the only parts that make them left or right handed are the hands. So I could pop these off, flip them round, and pop the hands back, swap the hands around, and they would be just as serviceable. It makes assembly much more streamlined and simpler. As well as everything being allowing Bandai to provide everything on identical sprues, so the arm parts, the leg parts are supplied on identical sprues and called as such. Yeah, the only mistakes that were made with putting the kit together were my own mistakes. Nothing really wrong with the kit. That includes chopping one of the fixing nubs and one of the shoulders off. Nothing a little bit of Tamiya cement can't fix. And I chopped the nub off of one of the beam sabers, but I've managed to repair that, I think. As for the kit itself, instead of a polycap piece, we have a ABS plastic or styrene plastic neck piece, giving us a nice back and forth on the head. The gorget sort of armour does interfere a bit with getting the head all the way around. It is a bit of a task getting it any more than 90 degrees either way. And that's a part I forgot to glue in. And even part separation on the head is done really well, so the seam that we have on the back of the head is, and not quite as close as I'd like, it's a panel line, it's not a part seam. The top of the helmet, the crown piece, the sides of the helmet, and the inner part that holds the eyepieces and the mouth grill part, they're all part separated. In fact, part separation on this and colour separation are absolutely mind-blowing. There are some colour correcting stickers for me to apply to the shoulder verniers, but I haven't bothered because they look absolutely fine in plain red. The stickers would be black and red. As for other colour corrections, you have a sticker for the eyes, sticker for the helmet camera and reverse helmet camera, and there's also a sticker on the beam rifle, which we'll have a look at in a bit. Torso is a double polycap assembly. As says, as the most awkward part won't come apart, but that does mean that we get a little bit of flexibility in the torso without taking the kit apart. As well as enough clearance on the waist parts for a big spin, and a little bit of freedom for side to side movement on the torso joints rather than the hips. The one thing that I could potentially say that I'm not entirely fond of is how separated the shoulders appear to be. Again, classic polycap piece for the joint, and the arms that the ball joint come out on are seem quite long, or the polycaps don't sit quite far in enough. Just makes the arms float away from the body a little bit, in my opinion. But apart from that, deflection all the way up, little independently articulating armour flaps there. They're good. Oh dear, there we go. So the angle on the piece here dictates the maximum bend of the arm, so let's say 150, 145 degrees. And same with flexion on the other arm. So again, not quite a full 180. Wrist is plastic on plastic. The red there's a red plastic part there. Oh, hang on. There's a red plastic part here that the plastic of the hand pieces just snap into. So nothing special, full 360 rotation on the hand, along with some range of mobility therein. With the legs, again, we've got a fixed butt flap and a double ball joint for the front skirt, which I have snipped before gluing in place. We do have a bit more flexibility on the side skirts here though, so I should hope so with such a waspy waist too. Splits ever so slightly more impressive than with the Guncannon. I should hope so, with something this many generations removed from our prototype Gundams. To the front, limited there by the side skirt getting in the way. For our knee articulation, again that classic double joint gives us about 160 degrees of articulation, and even with all this part separation, all these lovely mechanical sort of looking pieces, yeah, nice range of motion, and the parts all move in and out of each other quite nicely. Despite the ankle being very bare, there's not a great deal of mobility, so got our left and right deflection there, pointing the toes up, and then pulling the toes off. Let's try that again. So pointing the toes up, pointing the toes down. Yeah, despite being quite in a slim kit, the articulation of the ankles isn't as impressive. Let's give this a quick push back together, and that, I suppose. And I really need to glue this in. Finally, we've got the wing pack. So the Hyaku Shiki is based off of the Delta Gundam, which was a flying transforming prototype Gundam. The Hyaku Shiki took the majority of the good parts from the research and development from there and just binned off the transformation ability, which leaves us with these wing binders and the pack, again with part separation, a stowage from one of the that we can use from one of the accessories, the clay bazooka, and verniers for the thrusters, vernier thrusters for the pack as well, to help with flight, along with the many thrusters dotted around the chassis. As far as accessories go, two very nice beam sabers with beams in yellow, with the classic bulged sort of lower part. The beam sabers come in 2 pieces, which is a bit different from some of the other kits I put together. 2 sets of hands, sets of closed fists, and the pair that I have fitted, which are classic open pose sandwich style gripping hands for holding your weapons. As far as weapons go, we have that classic Gundam Zeta beam rifle. Made in 3 pieces from grey plastic, 2 sides of the body and the barrel, and the bazooka with a retractable handle, and our StudioG in 3 pieces, handle piece, left and right sides of the bazooka itself, and the bazooka can be stowed on either side of the backpack. That is everything in the kit. So we'll just pop the accessories over here and talk about the paints. So I've never used lacquer paints before. This was the first time I've used lacquer paints. And I airbrushed them on, and they all went down absolutely beautifully. The G paints, if you do leave, or I'm assuming most lacquer paints, if you do leave them for a long period of time, the component parts will separate. However, the bottles come with mixables inside. Just give the bottle a tilt a couple of times to start moving everything around inside. And then, in fact, I didn't use that, so this should be a good example. So, I don't know if you can see, there's relatively clear component up here with all the dye down there. So if I can, you can just about see the Gundam through the clear part, the carrier with all the pigment and dye and other parts inside there. So just give it a couple of tilts and you can already hear that mixable. A couple of minutes of that, and the other good thing about that I found very handy with the StudioG paints was they are airbrush ready as soon as they're mixed. These were all applied around 2 to 3 inches from the models for the most part, with a 50mm needle. Good grief, it's a paint cannon. With a 0.5mm needle at around 12 to 14 psi. The first parts that I did were the bright red parts on the Guncannon. So with the larger leg parts in particular, it's just a teeny tiny bit of an orange peel effect where I had gotten a bit of overspray on those, but that's a fault with me, not with the paints. After I learnt my lesson there, everything else has gone down beautifully. So if I bring the Guncannon up, you can see that the red's gone down quite glossy, but then this other red has gone down a bit more satin. And it's also a slightly darker red, and just let me modulate the colour of the kit and break up that bright red sort of racing car aesthetic into something a bit more manufactured, a bit more made, a little bit more menacing, to be honest, with the slightly darker red. I'm a much bigger fan of this darker red. Other parts that were airbrushed, so I didn't like the original off-white of the Guncannon's head, sort of a minty pea green colour. So I airbrushed it a delightful white compared to the sort of not quite pastel green. Silver for the weapons, bright silver even for weapons, and dark iron, I believe, was for the shoulder parts, the backpack, and some silver for the nacelles on the rocket pack as well. Oh, and of course I can't forget the gold that I used for the yellow. That came out really nicely. Yeah, I have nothing to complain about apart from a few technique errors with the paints. Coverage was absolutely fantastic. Went a bit more silly with the Hyaku Shiki, but as I was taking parts off the sprue, I wasn't really thinking about where the parts were. I was looking, and in fact, one complaint I do have: this lovely rose pink colour is advertised as copper. It looks on the box label significantly darker and more red than this. And don't get me wrong, it's gone down beautifully. It is a lovely colour. It is not the colour I was expecting, but we've got our bright gold and pale gold over most of the body. I went with the same dark red again for the red parts, and this witch purple colour for the blue parts on the body. A lot brighter than I was expecting. I was expecting something a bit closer to blue than purple, and a lot darker really, but I can't complain. The uniformity of the finish with the metal paint and the distribution of the pigment and the purity of the colour and how the opacity of the paints in general as well really blew me away. The Hyaku Shiki kit, as you know, the plastic is moulded in gold. Oh. But you can see particularly on the thinner flat parts, tide marks and mould marks where the pigment and the flow didn't quite distribute everything evenly. That's all disappeared underneath the airbrush, underneath the paint, almost instantly. This is all just a layer in most instances. Might have been a couple of layers with the dark red, just because I'll be honest, I wasn't letting it dry long enough and for it to settle and colour down, and there's maybe a little bit of translucency to the purple over the dark blue. A very bright colour going over a dark colour is never an easy thing. I know the black for all of the inner frame parts as well, the torso, the neck, these mechanical parts, the joints, went down really nicely, and thus far hasn't really shown any signs of fatigue. I have been giving this quite a bit of a pull around, but doesn't seem to be in any great rush to get scraped off or worn out, which is good, because one of the other advertised selling points for the StudioG points is they're not display paints. They're rough and ready. They're scratch resistant, dust resistant, don't need glossing, don't need any protective covering on them there, and don't need any priming either, which is another thing. No primer on these. I just had gloves on as I was despruing everything to avoid fingerprints and oil from my fingertips out of the bags, and the paints went straight down. Beautifully. So yeah, can't fault the kit. Only problem with any of this has been silly little mistakes by me. Guncannon, really nice, very basic, very rewarding kit. Hyaku Shiki, absolutely beautiful, and for an HG kit, quite complicated but quite rewarding and looks absolutely delightful. And the StudioG paints, can't fault them. The ease of use, longevity, the coverage, opacity, density of the pigments and quality of the pigments, nothing to no comparison, no complaints. And I did do some maths, but I'm not going to stop now and try and run through it, but relatively cheap as well by volume, because you do get quite large bottles of the paint, So the initial outlay for the paint is quite high, but you are saving a little bit of money as well. And yeah, can't fault the quality of the paints or the job that they've done on these kits. I suppose we should take a closer look at these now.